Step closer to the fire and listen, because tonight, we're opening a hidden vault of legendary monsters that once terrified entire generations. Some of these creatures lurk beneath dark waters. Others roam ancient forests. And a few, well, they may still be watching from the shadows. As we journey through these classic horror gems, I want you with me, don't look away. Not even for a second. And if you love diving into chilling stories like this, make sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never face the darkness alone again. 1. Creature from the Black Lagoon, 1954. A scientific expedition drifts into the Amazon, only to discover a creature that isn't supposed to exist, yet watches them from beneath the black water with ancient, patient hunger. And before you go any further, let me ask you, if something reached up from the depths and brushed your ankle, would you look down? The story of Creature from the Black Lagoon begins like a whispered rumor shared around a campfire, a tale of a hidden world untouched by time, where the river bends like a serpent and shadows ripple across the surface even when the wind is still. The scientists who venture there believe they're searching for fossils. But every step they take, every hand that dips into the water, wakes something that has been dreaming for millions of years. And once it wakes fully, it doesn't forget. Imagine being on that boat, surrounded by walls of green, with the jungle humming like a living heartbeat. You lean over the railing, the water dark as ink, and for a moment you swear you see something moving below. Not a fish, not a log, something shaped almost like a man. Almost. That's the magic of this film. It pulls you in slowly, making you wonder where the line truly lies between man, monster, and nature's forgotten children. But here's the twist. This creature isn't just a mindless beast. There's a strange, unsettling dignity to it, a loneliness even, as if it's the last of its kind, defending the only home it has left from intruders who don't understand what they're stepping into. Does that make it a villain? Or simply a guardian? I'm curious. What do you think? Is the monster the creature, or the people trespassing into its world? Tell me in the comments. And let's talk about its iconic design. Those glistening scales, the webbed claws, the wide unblinking eyes, it feels like something born from a childhood nightmare. Yet real enough that you half expect to see it lurking behind reeds during a midnight swim. The creature doesn't rush or roar, instead, it haunts, stalks, and waits. There's something uniquely terrifying about a monster that doesn't need to chase you, it just knows that eventually you'll come close enough. What really seals this film's legendary status is the tension that builds like a slow rising tide. You know the creature is there, you know it's watching, but the characters don't, at least not until it's too late. Those underwater shots, filmed so elegantly, make you feel like you're floating just above danger, suspended between wonder and dread. Have you ever had that feeling in real life, like you're being watched when everything around you looks perfectly calm? Even after decades, Creature from the Black Lagoon remains a haunting reminder that the world still has dark corners. And maybe, just maybe, not every legend is merely a story. And if this creature were real today, would you dare go swimming in the Amazon? Let me know. I want to hear your take. 2. King Kong, 1933. A film crew voyages to a mysterious island and discovers a colossal beast, one powerful enough to crush armies, yet vulnerable enough to be undone by something as small as love. But before we dive in, let me ask you, if you met a monster capable of gentleness, would you still call it a monster? There's something enchanting about the way King Kong opens, like the first page of an old adventure novel. The kind you'd find hidden in a dusty attic. You can almost hear the creak of rope, the crash of waves against the ship, and the hushed whispers among crew members trading stories about the island they're sailing toward. Skull Island, a name that feels like a warning in itself. And when the fog thins and the shoreline appears, you sense that nothing waiting beyond those trees is meant for ordinary eyes. But the heart of this story isn't the island, it's the towering creature who rules it. Kong, a legend wrapped in fur and fury. Yet, the first time he steps from the shadows, there's a strange pull to him. Something that makes you lean closer rather than look away. Maybe it's his eyes, wide, wounded, full of a wild intelligence. Or maybe it's because deep down, part of us recognizes that even monsters have stories of their own. What do you think? Did you feel sympathy for him when you first saw him? Or did fear take over? One of the most fascinating things about this film is how it plays with the idea of power, how humans believe they control the world until they meet something far older. Something untouched by civilization. The islanders worship Kong not out of love, but out of respect for the balance he represents. When he roars, the jungle itself seems to pause. When he moves, even ancient trees bow beneath him. And yet, for all that strength, it's a single human woman who tames his rage. If only for a moment. But here comes the hook that still grips audiences decades later, once Kong is taken from his home. The true horror begins, not for the world, but for him, the great beast, shackled in chains, thrust under the harsh glow of city lights, becomes a spectacle rather than a king. And as he breaks free and climbs the Empire State Building, you can't help wondering, who is the real villain here? The creature who wants to protect what he cares about? Or the people who wanted to cage a legend? I want to hear your thoughts on this. What's your take? The final scene, that silhouette against the sky, feels almost mythic, as if you've just witnessed the fall of a god. And maybe you have, because Kong isn't just a monster, he's a reminder of everything wild, ancient, and powerful that mankind can never fully conquer, no matter how hard it tries. So tell me, if you stood at the foot of that skyscraper, watching Kong fight for his last breath, would you feel fear or heartbreak? 3. Nosferatu, 1922. A mysterious count invites a traveler into his decaying castle, unaware that the visitor is stepping into the lair of a creature older and hungrier than any nightmare. But before you sink into this tale, let me ask you, have you ever felt someone watching you when the room was completely still? There's a particular chill that comes with Nosferatu. A chill that feels different from modern horror. It's the kind that creeps slowly, like a shadow crawling up the wall long before you realize it isn't your shadow at all. The film doesn't rush to scare you, instead, it lures you in, step by step, until suddenly you notice that your breath has gone shallow, and you're leaning just a little too close to the screen. And that's the beauty of it. This story pulls you inward, like a whisper you're not sure you should lean in to hear. We follow Hutter, the naive traveler, whose excitement at visiting Count Orlok's secluded estate blinds him to every warning. The villagers whisper, the horses pull back, the road itself seems to recoil, yet Hutter goes anyway. And maybe you would too, right? Curiosity is a powerful thing. But imagine this. You approach a towering castle, its windows like empty eye sockets staring down at you. The door opens before you knock, and the host, well, he doesn't smile. Not really. He stretches his lips the way an animal might stretch its jaw before biting. Tell me, if you were Hutter, would you keep walking inside? Count Orlok is one of cinema's most haunting monsters. Not because he hides his nature, but because he doesn't bother to. His long fingers scratch across the wood like dried branches. His stiff movements feel unnatural, as though his bones were arranged for purposes other than living. And those eyes, sunken, ravenous, lock onto Hutter with a hunger so open it's almost insulting. There's no seduction, no charm, no velvet cloak like later vampires. Orlok isn't pretending to be human. He is the nightmare that inspired the myth. One of the most iconic moments, his shadow stretching up the staircase, fingers lengthening as if reaching for the soul rather than the throat, still sends a shiver down spines today. Maybe because shadows don't need permission to touch you. Maybe because we've all had that moment where we see something move out of the corner of our eye and hope it's just our imagination. Be honest. Has that ever happened to you? What makes Nosferatu so unforgettable is its sense of inevitability. Darkness doesn't chase you here, it simply waits for you to tire. Orlok isn't a monster who leaps, he advances. Slowly, purposefully, as if he knows that no matter how far you run, the night always catches up. So let me ask you, do you prefer vampires who charm their victims, or ones like Orlok, who don't bother hiding the monster within? I'd love to see your take in the comments. 4. The Mummy, 1932. A long-dead priest is awakened by forbidden magic, returning to life with a single purpose: recover what was stolen from him. But before we unwrap this tale, let me ask you, if you found an ancient scroll said to hold the power of resurrection, would you dare read it aloud? There's something uniquely haunting about the Mummy. A quiet, Creeping dread that feels like it rises from the sands themselves. Unlike loud, furious monsters, this one comes back slowly, patiently, like someone taking a first breath after thousands of years. And maybe that's why it lingers in the mind so powerfully. You don't just watch this story, you feel it. Like a cold finger brushing the back of your neck when no one's there. The film opens with a forbidden act. Archaeologists unseal a sarcophagus they should have left buried. They read a scroll they should have burned. And the moment those ancient words leave their mouths, something shifts in the room. Just a flicker. A whisper of fabric. A shadow moving ever so slightly. You know that moment when everything goes quiet and you feel like you shouldn't breathe? That's the kind of silence the mummy thrives in. Tell me, have you ever felt that kind of silence yourself? Imhotep, once a high priest, rises not as a roaring beast but as a presence, slow, deliberate, unstoppable. His bandages fall away one by one until all that remains is a man shaped by tragedy and obsession. What makes him so chilling is not his appearance, but his intent. He isn't wandering aimlessly. He isn't confused. He knows exactly what he wants. The reincarnation of the woman he once died for. And he will bend the living world to his will to reclaim her. Imagine being in the same room with him, his ancient eyes fixed on you. Not with simple malice, but with the calm certainty of someone who's waited centuries and won't accept any answer except, yes. Would you run, or freeze where you stand? There's a strange melancholy woven into the horror, as if the film itself is mourning something long lost. The deserts feel endless, the temples echo with memories, and Imhotep's presence lingers like unfinished grief. Even his supernatural power carries tragedy rather than rage, and that's what makes the story fascinating. You're scared of him. But part of you understands him, maybe even sympathizes. Do you feel that too? Or do you see him as pure evil? I'd love to hear your thoughts. And then there's the classic question the film raises. How far should humans go in the name of discovery? Sometimes the past is buried for a reason. Sometimes legends aren't just stories. The Mummy reminds us that ancient warnings aren't always metaphors. Sometimes they're survival guides. So tell me, if you were standing before a sealed tomb with a curse carved across the stone, would curiosity win? Or would caution make you step back? 5. The Mummy, 1932. When a forbidden love refuses to die, even time can't keep the past buried. The Mummy, 1932, an ancient priest resurrects after thousands of years. Driven by a dangerous, undying love. But here's the twist. His awakening isn't the scariest part. The real horror is realizing how far someone can go when obsession survives death itself. Have you ever wondered what you would do if the past suddenly came walking toward you? There's something uniquely haunting about The Mummy, 1932. It doesn't rely on jump scares or loud moments. Instead, it breathes slowly, like a relic waking up in the dark, whispering warnings you can't quite hear. Imagine opening a tomb, brushing centuries of dust off a mummy case, and suddenly noticing one bandage is missing. That's where it begins, a quiet unraveling. The kind that makes you check your surroundings twice. Boris Karloff's performance is mesmerizing. He doesn't need roaring or giant gestures. Every slow blink and faint movement carries the weight of centuries. When he emerges as Ardith Bey, half man, half echo of the ancient past, you can almost feel the desert heat and decay around him. His mission is simple but terrifying: to reclaim a lost love reincarnated in the modern world. And here's the chilling hook. What happens when love becomes a curse? Something that bends reality, identity, and morality? As the story unfolds, the film pulls you deeper into its dusty corridors. While the tension tightens like unraveling cloth around your throat, you're not just watching a mummy chase a woman. You're watching fate try to rewrite itself. And that's where the film becomes unexpectedly emotional. Have you noticed how classic horror often wove love and fear together? Does that make the monster more tragic, or more frightening? Every scene feels like a slow dance with destiny. The characters move between archaeological wonders, ancient scrolls, and forgotten prophecies. There's a sense that history itself is alive, listening, ready to strike back at anyone who disturbs it. When the Mummy uses forbidden magic, it doesn't feel like a spell, it feels like history correcting a mistake. And the unsettling question lingers. Are we ever truly safe from the past? By the time the story reaches its climax, the tension becomes almost unbearable. You're torn between fear, sympathy, and curiosity. Do you pity the monster for clinging to a love stolen by time? Or do you fear him for wanting to drag the living into the grave with him? Which side do you fall on? This movie proves that horror doesn't need loud effects, it just needs a story that taps into something timeless: love, loss, obsession, and the terror of things that refuse to stay buried. And honestly, isn't that the kind of horror that lingers long after the screen goes dark? What about you? Did The Mummy make you more afraid of ancient curses? Or more curious about the secrets history still hides? 6. An American Werewolf in London, 1981. Two travelers on a lonely moor encounter a creature that shouldn't exist, and one of them won't survive the night. But here's a question for you. If the darkness could follow you home, would you know it before it was too late? There's something magnetic about An American Werewolf in London. A film that doesn't just scare, it unsettles, teases, and refuses to let you look away. Imagine the moon rising over a misty English moor, the wind carrying whispers that seem almost human, and footsteps that crunch too loudly in the quiet night. That's where David and Jack start their journey. And the tension is immediate. You feel it in your chest. A heartbeat syncing with theirs. Wondering who will survive, who will transform, and who will become a story told by the living to the dead. The brilliance of this movie is how it blends humor and terror. Life and death, reality and nightmare. You find yourself laughing one moment, then recoiling in shock the next. That's the beauty of it. It's unpredictable, much like a full moon sky that changes without warning. And let's talk about the transformation scene. Don't scroll past it. It's legendary not just for its special effects, but because it makes you feel every bone, every muscle, every agonizing moment as if you were there. Skin stretching, humanity slipping away. Honestly, have you ever felt a horror scene so real that it lingered hours later in your thoughts? But beneath the terror lies an emotional pulse. David's struggle isn't just physical, it's existential. Imagine waking up knowing that your very nature has turned against you. That the person you thought you were is no longer in control. What would you do if you couldn't trust your own instincts, or your own body? And that's exactly what the film explores. Fear of the unknown, the uncontrollable, and the inevitable. I'm curious, if you were in David's shoes, would you try to fight it, or surrender to the change? And then there's the London setting. From foggy streets to buzzing neon lights, the city becomes a playground for horror and suspense. Each alley, each shadow seems alive, hiding something that doesn't belong. The werewolf doesn't just roam the moor. It follows David into the modern world, reminding us that monsters are not always confined to distant, dark places. They can lurk anywhere, even where we feel safest. What makes this film unforgettable is the balance between human emotion and supernatural terror. You care about David, you fear for him, and yet you are fascinated by the monstrous reality he embodies. And that's the ultimate hook, because once you start asking questions about humanity, mortality, and monsters, you can't stop. So tell me, if a creature like this walked past you tonight, would you run, hide, or try to understand it? I want to hear your thoughts in the comments. 7. The Howling, 1981. A reporter seeking refuge from a traumatic encounter discovers a remote commune, only to realize that some residents are more than human. But let me ask you, if the people around you weren't what they seemed, would you notice before it was too late? There's a tension in The Howling that creeps up slowly, like a shadow stretching at sunset, until suddenly it's everywhere. Imagine arriving at a secluded retreat, thinking you've found safety, only to feel eyes following you, whispers curling around your spine. The film doesn't hit you immediately with terror, instead, it lulls you into a false sense of calm. A calm so convincing that the first scratch of a claw or the sudden snarl feels utterly impossible to escape. And maybe that's why it still haunts viewers decades later. The story's brilliance lies in its layers. What begins as a tale of recovery gradually becomes a masterclass in paranoia and fear. Karen, the protagonist, walks into a community that promises solace but radiates unease. Have you ever been somewhere where the smiles around you felt too sharp? The laughter too hollow? That's the sensation this movie captures. making every friendly gesture suspicious and every quiet moment pulse with danger. It's not just about werewolves, it's about questioning what you think you know about the world and the people in it. And then comes the horror in its most visceral form. The transformations are legendary, yes, but what really sticks is the blend of empathy and dread. You understand these creatures, the duality of their human and monstrous selves, and yet, that understanding doesn't make them any less terrifying. It raises a question I'd love to hear your opinion on. Do you fear monsters because of their power? Or because they remind you of your own hidden instincts? The cinematography reinforces this unease masterfully. Fog-draped forests, moonlit nights, and the subtle play of shadows make the environment a character in itself. The commune feels alive, watching, breathing, conspiring, and every howl in the night isn't just a sound, it's a challenge. A warning that danger is always closer than it appears. Have you ever felt that tension in real life? That inexplicable sense that something unseen is watching you? That's the kind of immersive fear this film evokes. Beyond the scares, The Howling explores themes of identity, control, and surrender. It asks whether the human mind can ever fully suppress the beast within, or whether, under the right circumstances, everyone harbors a monster waiting to break free. It's that psychological undercurrent that makes the horror linger long after the credits roll. So, here's my question to you. If you discovered that someone close to you wasn't entirely human, would you run or stay and try to understand them? Share your thoughts. I'm genuinely curious how you'd survive a night in the Howling. 8. The Thing from Another World, 1951. A remote Arctic research team unearths a creature frozen in ice, only to realize it's not dead, and it's far more dangerous than anyone imagined. But let me ask you, if something alien was hiding among you, would you trust even your closest friends? There's a creeping dread in The Thing from Another World that starts quietly, almost imperceptibly, like the cold wind slipping under your door at night. Imagine the Arctic landscape, endless snow, howling winds, and the oppressive silence that makes every sound sharper, every shadow heavier. When the team discovers the alien, the air itself seems to vibrate with tension. It's not just the unknown creature that terrifies, it's the idea that their isolation has made them vulnerable. And that trust may be their greatest liability. I want you to imagine it with me. Would you stand by your friends if you weren't sure who was human? What makes this film resonate even today is its brilliant layering of suspense and paranoia. The Thing doesn't just chase, it studies, adapts, and waits. You feel every moment of uncertainty alongside the characters, the hesitation before opening a door, the quick glance at a comrade, the silent calculation of who might be next. Have you ever been in a situation where you doubted someone you trusted? That's the kind of psychological tension this movie wrings out masterfully. The creature itself is terrifying in a way that feels almost surgical. Its alienness isn't just in appearance, it's in the way it moves, reacts, and seems to understand the humans around it. It's clever, cunning, and utterly merciless, which forces the characters to rethink their strategies constantly. And here's the hook. The true horror isn't always what you see, it's what you can't see. That uncertainty keeps your mind racing, your eyes scanning, your pulse quickening. I'm curious. Do you think the fear of the unknown is scarier than a monster you can fully see? Beyond the immediate terror, The Thing from Another World is a meditation on human fragility and hubris. It asks what happens when curiosity and ambition collide with forces beyond comprehension. The isolation of the Arctic amplifies every fear, turning small mistakes into potential death sentences. Every argument, every suspicion, every act of courage or hesitation is amplified because in this frozen world, no one can escape their choices. If you were in that situation, would you risk everything to survive, or would you try to negotiate with the unknown? The film's lasting legacy is in its ability to combine physical horror with psychological tension. It asks uncomfortable questions about trust, survival, and the nature of fear itself. Even decades later, it reminds us that sometimes, the scariest monsters are not just those that lurk outside, they're the doubts that creep inside our own minds. So tell me, if you found yourself trapped with a creature that could imitate anyone, would you trust your instincts? Or could paranoia consume you first? Share your thoughts. I'd love to hear how you'd survive a night with The Thing. 9. The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, 1953. A prehistoric creature awakens from the Arctic ice, leaving a trail of destruction as it makes its way toward civilization. But let me ask you, if something ancient and unstoppable was on the move, would you feel awe, fear, or both? There's a peculiar thrill in The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms that captures the imagination even before the first roar shakes the screen. Picture the icy desolation of the Arctic, sunlight glinting off frozen ridges, and a world so empty that every sound seems amplified. And then, something stirs beneath the ice, massive, unseen, and impossibly alive. You can almost feel the tremors through your chair as the creature makes its first moves, reminding you that the past has a way of clawing its way back into the present. Have you ever wondered what it would feel like to witness a force of nature that existed long before humans, and might outlast us? The film thrives on tension, suspense, and the terrifying scale of its monster. The Beast is not just a physical threat, it's a living reminder of our vulnerability. Cities, towns, and everything familiar become insignificant in its path. And yet, there's a strange majesty to it. The way it moves, the way it reacts, even the sound of its roar carries weight. It makes you pause and ask, is this simply a monster, or a symbol of forces far beyond human control? I'd love to know, do you see it as pure terror? Or do you find it strangely fascinating? What makes the story compelling is the human response to such overwhelming power. Scientists study, militaries plan, and ordinary people are caught in the ripple effects. Every decision feels monumental because one misstep could lead to devastation. The narrative raises questions about responsibility, ingenuity, and survival. If you were facing something beyond comprehension, how far would you go to stop it? Would you act rationally, or would fear dictate your every move? Beyond the suspense, there's a layer of reflection on humanity's place in the world. The Beast moves according to its instincts, indifferent to human concerns, yet every act of destruction exposes our fragility. It forces the characters and the audience to confront the idea that nature, past and present, is far more powerful than our constructs. This tension between human arrogance and the raw force of the unknown is what gives the film its enduring charm. And the ending, well, it leaves you with that lingering shiver of uncertainty. Even when the immediate threat is gone, the memory of the creature lingers, haunting your thoughts like a warning. Have you ever felt that sense of awe mixed with fear after witnessing something beyond your understanding? That's exactly the experience this film delivers. So, here's my question for you. If a prehistoric creature suddenly appeared in your city, would you flee, fight, or try to understand it? I want to hear your thoughts. How would you face the unimaginable? 10. Trollhunter, 2010. A group of students follows a mysterious hunter through Norway, uncovering that trolls, ancient, massive, and terrifying, are real. But let me ask you, if you discovered creatures from folklore were hiding in the forests near you, would you run, or stay to film them? There's an uncanny thrill in Trollhunter that comes not just from seeing the trolls themselves, but from the way the story unfolds, like whispers in the woods that grow louder the closer you get. Imagine trudging through Norwegian forests under the dim glow of your flashlight, every rustle and crack sending shivers down your spine. And then, the camera catches a glimpse of something impossibly huge, with eyes reflecting your fear. That's when the film grabs you, not just visually, but psychologically. Have you ever had a moment where reality felt too strange to believe? That's exactly the feeling this movie cultivates. What makes the tension in Trollhunter extraordinary is the blend of folklore and mockumentary style. You see the characters documenting everything, and through their lens, the trolls feel immediate, real, and dangerous. The film doesn't rely on constant screaming or gore, it builds suspense from what's unseen, leaving your imagination to fill in the blanks. I want to ask you, do you think the unknown is scarier than the monster itself? The trolls in this story are fascinatingly layered. They are monstrous, yes, but they follow their own rules, governed by the laws of nature and ancient magic. They're not evil, they're just doing what trolls do, but their size, strength, and unpredictability make them deadly to anyone who crosses their path. Watching them, you feel a strange mix of awe and terror, as if the line between fantasy and reality has blurred. I'd love to hear your opinion. Do you find them frightening? Or do you secretly wish you could see one up close? Beyond the monster encounters, the human element adds depth. The students and the hunter are constantly debating morality, legality, and survival. The hunter knows the dangers. Yet the students push boundaries, filming everything. Their reactions, shock, curiosity, fear, and sometimes laughter, mirror how we might react if legends we grew up hearing turned out to be real. It asks the question, what would you do if your childhood fairy tales suddenly became reality? The film's setting in the wild Norwegian landscape amplifies the story. Snow-capped mountains, deep forests, and the isolated wilderness create tension that's almost tangible. You feel the chill, hear the wind in the trees, and sense the enormity of the creatures hiding just beyond sight. This creates suspense that lingers long after the credits roll. So here's a question for you. If trolls existed in your backyard, would you dare to hunt them, film them, or simply run the other way? Share your thoughts. I'm curious how brave, or foolish, you would be. As we step back from these legendary monsters, from the shadowy depths of the Black Lagoon to the towering forests of Norway, one thing becomes clear. These creatures aren't just nightmares, they're reflections of our fears, curiosities, and the unknown that lurks just beyond sight. Which one haunted you the most? Or sparked your imagination in ways you didn't expect? Share your thoughts in the comments. And let's continue this conversation about the monsters that stay with us long after the screen goes dark. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more journeys into horror's unforgettable legends.